Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to film a recent reads and currently reading video. So it's been a while since I've done one of these, but there's a few books hanging around from the end of March, beginning of April that I want to talk about, and then I'm reading a ton of books right now, so might as well get you caught up on what I'm currently reading. So at the end of March, before I went on my vacation, I was reading and completed a reread of Bitch on the Female of the Species by Lucy Cooke. I buddy read this with Britta Bowler. This is a book that I read for the first time in 2024 because it was a Book Naturalist book club pick. I think for June, somewhere in there. And this book is so good. And I got so much out of it on the first go around that Britta and I decided we wanted to reread it together and discuss it because there's a lot to discuss in this book. And so this is science nonfiction, and Lucy Cooke takes you through the research and the current understanding of what sex is in animals. And this is an exploration of the sort of range of ways of being there are in the world. And this book really goes a long ways towards dispelling this idea that there's a binary, that there's either one or the other, either male or female. This book shows very clearly that gender and sex is on a spectrum. And depending on a species strategy, there may be many ways to reproduce in the world, basically, and to be in the world. And I think this is just so well done. There's a lot of humor in here. Lucy Cooke has the receipts to back this up. This is a very well-researched book. There's lots of references that you can do further reading on. And I just love the way that Lucy Cooke puts paid to a lot of mythology around this subject. So yeah, very highly recommend this. It was a 5-star read the first time I read it. It was a 5-star read the second time I read it. I also, earlier than Bitch, finished This Body of Death, which is Elizabeth George, Detective Lindley mystery novel. This I read for March Mystery Madness. And again, I buddy read this with Britta earlier in the month. And this was the one, and it's been a while since I finished this. This is the one where there's a woman's body is found murdered in a cemetery, and the team has to figure out what's happened to her. And it leads them into this sort of dual group of suspects, one in the city and one in the country, and trying to figure out what happened to this woman, who committed this murder. And of course, there's lots of twists and turns. There are lots of potential characters that might be the one who did the deed or not. And this one is another great installment in the mystery series. And we get to see all of our cast of characters that we've been following throughout the whole series. I think this one is, I can't remember which number this one is, maybe 15, maybe. I'm not sure, but it was good anyway. During my vacation vlog, which I posted a couple of videos ago, I talked about reading this book, but then I realized I never wrapped it up. So thanks to the commenter on one of my previous videos that said, hey, you never told us what you thought about this book, which was The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. Again, for March Mystery Madness, this is book 1 in the Thursday Murder Club series. And this follows a group of senior citizens who live in a retirement village, and they have this sort of little group where they get together and they solve murders, usually cold cases, but in the case of this story, they're solving a red-hot murder, and it's fabulous. It's funny. These characters are awesome. I love an elderly protagonist, and this one has several, and they're all like very interesting characters. I'm very much looking forward to continuing on in this series. I already have book 2 that I purchased in February, so I'm looking forward to just jumping right in as soon as I get a minute. Just very British humor, with some really interesting characters that are not your normal characters. How these elderly people use their age to manipulate the situation and to get the information they want or to get the outcome they want is just fantastic. So yeah, highly recommend. I can see why this series is so popular. And then the last book that I want to talk about that I completed recently was Onyx Storm, which is book 3 in the Imperium series by Rebecca Yarros. I cannot hold the book up, even though I purchased it in February because I've lent it to my niece, who is also reading the series. This is a romantasy series, and like I said, it's book 3, so I can't get into the details too much of it, but basically we're following a group of young adults who are in this war college situation. And in this war college, you either bond with dragons and become a dragon rider, or you're like a researcher and you work in the library and you're a scribe, or you're in the infantry and you train to be a soldier on the ground. So there's various ways that you can be enrolled in this war college, but the main group of characters we're following are the dragon riders. And the main character is Violet, who had been training to be a scribe in her younger years, and then because of politics and her mother, the general, she ends up in competition to become a dragon rider, and plot ensues from there. There's a love interest, there are lots of political intrigue, there are fabulous dragon characters, and that is what has sucked me into this series. It is not great literature, let's be honest, it's not, but it's a fun time. I'm really enjoying my read of the series. Once it sucked me in with the dragons, I was there for it, and I would say that book 3 actually was a very pleasant surprise for me, because I had been hearing a lot of rumblings around the internet that Onyx Storm was not people's favorite in the series. And, I can understand why that is. But for me, because book 3, I will say, like, just an aside, book 3 has a lot less sex in it than book 2 did, which is fine for me, but evidently not for others. But I just love the dragons. As long as the dragons are involved, I am totally into it. And I find they're very plot heavy. So there's a lot of action and a lot of stuff going on. I think the characters are fun. I like Violet as a woman in a position that she never expected to be in, and finding her own strengths in that role. I love that type of a plot line. So yeah, enjoyed my time with Onyx Storm. So what else am I currently reading? I'm currently reading like 6 books. I've recently finished 2 books for the BookTube Prize. I have a 3rd one on the go. So that I won't talk about, but know that reading is also happening. I'm doing another reread, and this time for Book Naturalist Book Club. This is Fathoms, The World in the Whale by Rebecca Giggs. I'm about 2/3 of the way through this reread, enjoying it. It's a fabulous book, but this book I will be doing a separate standalone review of at the end of the month, as I always do for the Book Naturalist books. I am also continuing on in my presidential biography, which is Truman. You can see from my bookmark, I'm about halfway through. I am doing this both. I have the print version and I also have the ebook version. And so I can flip back and forth with this. Most of the time at night, I read it in the ebook because it's easier to read on my Kindle in bed than it is to hold up this humongous 1,000-page nonfiction. So I'm working on that. Let's see, I have my Kindle right here. My romance at the moment that I'm reading with my romance buddy readers, Doris and Katie, is Always Remember by Mary Balogh. I used to read a lot of Mary Balogh back in the day, like in my 20s and 30s, and then I just got out of reading a lot of historical romance, and so I'm super glad to be back with this author because I think she's fantastic. Always Remember is like book 3 in the Ravenswood stories group of books, but I have not read any of the rest of the series, and I do not feel like that you need to necessarily. I probably will jump back and read the first 2 before this because I like this group of people that Balogh is talking about. But in this one, we're following our 2 main characters, Lady Jennifer, and Ben Ellis. Ben is the bastard son of an earl, and Lady Jennifer is in a wheelchair. She had a childhood illness that left her with one leg that is, she can't walk. Basically, it's twisted and not able to support her weight. And so she's been in a wheelchair her whole life. And these 2 young people, they're in their 20s, or she's 25 and he's like 31 or 2, are both very nice people. Like, they're just very nice people. They're kind of ordinary, even though they are in the aristocracy. They're kind of ordinary people. And Ben is a problem solver, and Jennifer tells him that, you know, she has this dream that she would be able to get around more than she currently is able to. Right now, she's like, at the time, wheelchairs weren't self-propelled. You had to have somebody pushing you around. So her dream is that she could be more independent and move around on her own a little bit more. And so he is determined to solve some of these problems for her. And in the course of him like trying to solve these practical problems, they start to become friends, and maybe more than friends. And it's just a gentle, lovely romance. This is very non-spicy. If you want spice in your romance, Mary Balogh is not for you. This is a very gentle romance with I'm over halfway through. I'm like 60% of the way through. There's been no sex. So if that's not what you like in your romance, like, this isn't for you. But if you do like a gentle romance with adult characters who act like adults and are just lovely, and the people around them are lovely, there's no villain, it's just nice people getting to know one another, I'm totally here for it. I am buddy reading a book by Wangari Maathai. This is not the book. This is just to show you her name. I'm reading her memoir called Unbowed, and I had first become introduced to this author by this Penguin Green Ideas series that I read a couple years ago, and I'm currently buddy reading her memoir with Rachel, my friend Rachel, and it is so good. It is so good. So for People April, if you're looking for a memoir or, you know, that type of book, I would highly recommend Unbowed by Wangari Maathai. She was a African from Kenya, environmental activist. She, you know, was born in the 50s, studied and became a scientist, and over the course of like her early career became involved in an environmental movement in Kenya and began to lead that movement called the Green Belt movement, which was a project to plant trees in Kenya to try to overcome the impacts of deforestation and soil erosion and drought and that sort of thing. And that led to her basically being the source of this worldwide movement to plant trees. And she was very involved in the Decade of the Woman from the mid-70s to the mid-80s, like showing that women could be leaders in movements and sort of not just wives and mothers and staying at home, but that there was jobs for women to do in the broader perspective of global issues. And she is such a fascinating person, and her memoir is so uplifting and so inspiring, and she is just such an amazing person, and I'm so glad that we're reading her biography together. So that's something I'm reading. I've just started, and I'm not even 100 pages into, Praiseworthy by Alexis Wright, an Australian author. Australian Aboriginal author, and this is a fiction book about an Aboriginal character who is determined to help his people survive into perpetuity and to live through the climate crisis by gathering up a group of feral donkeys. And his idea is that when everything goes to shit in the world because of the climate crisis, donkeys will provide transportation and ways to move things around and a non-fossil fuel transportation system. And he and his people are going to be the people that organize that and benefit from having a non-fossil fuel related transportation system. And it's so interesting and funny, but it's written in quite a challenging style. I would say it's sort of like a cross between Ducks Newburyport and The Deluge for me right now. And some of the sort of slang that's written throughout the narrative is not familiar to me since I'm not from Australia, but I am quite interested in this book and very interested to see where it will go. And that is a buddy read with Sean from Sean Breathes Books and Joe Smith. So I think that's it. Like I said, I am reading some BookTube Prize books, but we don't need to talk about those right now. That's where I'm at with some recent reads and what I'm currently reading. I hope you're all doing well and finding some great books to read. I will talk to you later.